is the sidewalk where I once learned to roller skate. This is the tree I climbed with my friends. And this is where my daddy walked me to school when he was on his way to work downtown. I love this neighborhood. Growing up here in Garland, Texas, this little area to me was almost like magic. That's what my mom always called this street, Magic 11th. She and my daddy lived here as newlyweds. They went on to build 2 homes on one of these blocks. This was the center of their world for all the years they were married. My mom used to tell me that this peaceful little street was very important to the community. 3 men who were Garland mayors lived here. 5 people were city council members. Another was the school board president. 1 was a prominent preacher. Others owned businesses in town. When my parents moved on to 11th Street in 1941, the town had only 2,000 people in it. The street was quiet and safe. When my husband and I moved back to this street 16 years ago to care for my widowed mom, Garland had grown to a town of more than 200,000. And things on 11th Street were rapidly changing. No longer was this a coveted place to live or one of the beauty spots in Garland. The house we bought was run down and had sat boarded up and vacant for a while. Honestly, at first, it was pretty scary inside. Our adult children thought when we bought it we had lost our minds. They begged us to forget it and to move on to someplace newer and safer. But we worked to fix it up. Even after my mother passed away, we stayed on 11th Street and continued to restore it. This was home. My husband loved this street too, even though it wasn't his hometown.
We spent Christmases here, we spent holidays here, we spent vacations here. Our children saw this as their second home in so many ways. And we really loved the neighborhood and we wanted to see it saved.
On the inside, our restored house looked beautiful, but on the outside, trouble was brewing, more than we even realized. Neighbors were calling police to break up fistfights by students from the high school just a block away. Litter seemed to be out of control.
It was in the middle of the day. A couple of young people, I think 19 and 20, were walking down the street knocking on all the neighbors' doors asking if anybody had directions to get someplace. And that was kind of the way that they would figure out if somebody was home and have the opportunity to look inside and see if there was anything they wanted. And so they went around to the side of the house on the busy side of the street, kind of out of sight, and kicked in one of our door panels and got into the house and found a backpack and started filling it with our digital camera and my wife's wedding ring and whatever they could find quickly, a couple of laptops, and then took a 60 or 70 pound plasma screen TV off the wall. But they didn't have a car, and so they started carrying the stuff down the alley, including the TV, and one of our neighbors happened to see them with the TV and called the police, and they were arrested, and we were able to recover most of our stuff.
We had a nickname for it called Marijuana Avenue, and Marijuana Avenue was the location where the students who are at Garland High School who smoked marijuana, also smoked cigarettes, they would come out around into our alley and then they would come down the street, and there were a lot of trees along here at that point, a lot of bushes, and they would hide in the bushes and they would smoke the marijuana. The street became something that was almost intolerable to the neighborhood. This particular house on this side, the driveway opened into what was then West Avenue C, and the cars that were parked there were burglarized at least once a week. It was just really turning into a nightmare.
School buses at times seemed to be taking over the residential street. Residents were mad because students trampled their yards and parents blocked their driveways while they waited to pick up their kids. The magic 11th Street that I had loved from my childhood and that my mother had adored before that was just not the same anymore. It made sense that our area was changing because another area I used to care about was changing as well. In downtown Garland, not far from my home, I had once spent hours in the little shops on the square. Every year at Christmas, I went to the Five and Dime to pick out my special doll. I ate my first chicken salad sandwich at the drugstore counter. I walked upstairs at the dry goods store to try on dresses. But now those little shops were gone. Downtown was taking on a new look.
I'm really excited about what I see happening in downtown Garland. When the DART rail system came through, it really opened up the opportunity to redevelop downtown with transit-oriented development. Bringing residents into downtown Garland, I think, has led to more restaurants that are staying open, fewer vacant storefronts, and a new energy that just wasn't there before. But in addition to that, I see a renewed interest in preserving our history.
Years and years and years ago, the square was, I always heard, was always vibrant. In the pictures that you could see, the black and white pictures, and even into the 60s, it was very vibrant with those. But I also remember dinner conversations that my dad would always say, oh, the city council is trying to figure out how do we revitalize the square, and this discussion has been going on since the 1960s. And you know, now I'm glad to see it finally happening. And so I've just decided, one building at a time, you know, I will continue to redo some of these old buildings that I could possibly get a hold of, and one building at a time try to improve the retail and commercial area of downtown Garland. By far, these are the brightest days I have seen in Garland in a long, long time, and I'm very fortunate to be a part of all of this and to watch it all come back alive.
But let me take you way back even further than my childhood to the year 1895. Much of present-day Garland was a cotton field. John and Nina Pace were pioneer cotton farmers on the edge of town. They built this one-story dwelling, a typical farmhouse on the Texas frontier. They reared their daughter in this home. Decades later, after the Paces died, the house was moved to downtown Garland and refurbished to hold wedding receptions and teas. But when new apartments began cropping up, the Pace house no longer had a place. This fine old treasure, with its original stained glass windows and its Queen Anne-inspired exterior, was slated to be bulldozed. That's when our paths crossed with this house.
The city was looking to redevelop downtown Garland and to bring more residents in to support the businesses there. Originally, we had planned to move the Pace House to Central Park to make room for redevelopment. However, when those plans proved too costly, a group of engaged citizens came forward to champion returning the house back to private ownership as a home.
And we were gravely alarmed when we learned that the future of the Pace House was very, very grim. And we went before the city council and begged them to please hold off and to not destroy the house, and to give us time to come up with some kind of plan in some way to save that particular historic home as well as another one.
Lewis Moore, a subscriber to This Old House magazine, contacted the magazine about the opportunity for somebody to own the Pace House if they could pay the cost of the move. As a result of that article, over 300 individuals contacted the city expressing interest in taking the house.
Then it occurred to us, maybe this house could mean something to Magic 11th Street and could be part of the answer to some of the troubles we were facing.
Our neighborhood backs up to Garland High School, and this was where Avenue C came through to our alley. Now we have a fence here, but the students were able to come through, and this was their entrance to Marijuana Avenue, and then they would meet the drug dealers over in the Presbyterian parking lot. So our effort at first was just simply to close off Avenue C right here, and so we paid for, the neighborhood paid for the fence that went in here. And we were supported by the school and by the church. Everybody wanted a solution, but nobody really knew what to do or how to do it until the neighborhood said, this is what we do, we close it off. Then the city went ahead and closed the street, abandoned it, and then they sold it to me because I owned houses on both sides of the street by that point. We had simultaneously the issue of the Pace House and the Marijuana Avenue Street, and it took us about 6 months to connect the dots and put the two together. But when we did, we realized that we could create the new lot here, and we could then move the historic Pace House into our historic neighborhood.
The city received inquiries from over 300 individuals from all over the country interested in taking the Pace House. But ultimately, only 3 proposals were submitted. By that time, the Moores had decided that the lot they owned would make a perfect place for the Pace House. Only their proposal of the 3 submitted promised to keep the Pace House within Garland, and in addition, promised to keep it in a historic neighborhood, which was a fitting setting for the house.
The city was very, very cooperative and very happy to have the issue addressed, as was the school, as was the church.
A lot of people have ideas about what should be done, but very few are actually willing to invest their own time and money to make it happen.
All these things taken together were causing people to pay a lot more attention and begin respecting Magic 11th once again. We worked with the school district to help the buses find another place to load and unload athletic teams that would not disrupt the neighborhood. We worked with the city to get new parking signs that helped control the loitering and disruptive people there. While the neighborhood was getting ready for the Pace House to arrive, we asked the city to officially designate 11th Street between Avenues B and D as Garland's first historic district. The neighborhood now includes some newer families that have caught the vision and are working to bring their own homes back to life.
We just love mostly the architectural detail. You know, when we first came and first saw the house, you know, it's not many houses you can walk into, even in new construction, that have 5 fireplaces within the house. You know, a 300 square foot front porch to sit on with an old porch swing. And, you know, just thinking of the history of the house and the families that have grown there and, you know, raised children there, and the weddings that have been, you know, held on the front porch. You know, there's something much deeper and more valuable than drywall and you know, just the things that come with new construction.
It's daybreak here on Garland's historic 11th Street, and things are fairly hushed here at this moment. But in a few short hours, this will be the scene of much activity, because the historic Pace House very shortly will be moving down. This is Austin Avenue, and it will be turning to the south on 11th Street, and it will head down to its final destination at 317 South 11th Street. The significance of this corner is that in our family, back in the 1940s, a little rock cottage was situated here. And this was the cottage to which my dad, J.D. Wheeler, brought his bride, Mabel Evelyn Miller Wheeler, in March of 1941, and they began married life here. And my mom loved this place. She loved 11th Street, and later on she and my dad would move on down to 412 South 11th Street, and they built their home there where they lived for more than 50 years until just before each of their passings. A lot of people have turned out for the day. For some, it's out of curiosity. Others feel a special bond with the Pace House and are thrilled that it's about to begin a new chapter.
My husband Vernon and I were married in this house on May 16, 1998, and it's a flurry of emotions today seeing it move from its former place in Heritage Park and away from the train museum. And we stood on the porch right there and got birdseed thrown at us when we come out after being pronounced husband and wife, and I'm glad that they're not tearing the house down, that they're moving it to a more historic place in Garland and keeping its historic structure and integrity and just the beautiful Victorian home that it is.
Well, I think it's first a victory for the city of Garland, because a year ago we were talking about possibly bulldozing this house, and obviously you and I and a lot of other people didn't want to see that happen. But to me, it's recognizing our history and upholding our history. A lot of people think that Garland's a suburb, and really we've never been a suburb. We've always been a city. Dallas did get kind of close at one point. They're still kind of close, but we're a city, been here since 1891. Preserving these historic structures is extremely critical. In this particular case, we have a structure going from the public domain back to the private domain. This house is moving to an historic district where it'll be protected. And I just can't imagine a better outcome and being able to know what the future of this house is going to be. Lots and lots of people will look at it and realize that if it can be done here, we can do it elsewhere.
Bring this one down first. History is important because you got to go know your history to know where you're going. History's made us what we are today, and this is one of the original homes in Garland.
A lot of people have given their all to make this happen. The house has a high-pitched roof and lots of gables. Utility workers had to clear wires out of the way.
Any particular spot you want us to try and hit?
See where we've got all three faces picked up right there?
Yes, sir.
I'd like for the highest point of that ridge on that corner to come right there. That way they've got it over there
right?
too. Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
Some large tree branches had to be cut at the last minute to make room for the house to move down the street.
With it being this close, how are you feeling right now?
I'm relieved. Can't believe it. I remember when I described to this guy that we were going to do this someday. It was like a dream, you know, it was like, you know, really. And so here it is.
All these people on 11th Street were waiting for it to arrive. When people started cheering as it was being set down on its new location, it was very exciting.
Okay, guys, that's it. Let's shut it down.
When the Pace House first arrived on its new home, on its new lot, we didn't even have a foundation. The house was in dire need of a new sewer line, new water line, new electric line. We had to completely reconfigure the interior of the house where it had bedrooms instead of meeting rooms. The house had to be totally overhauled, totally redone, especially on the inside, to make it livable again like it once was. But finally, the house was ready for the public to see, and instead of something that could have gone to the landfill, we had this beautiful treasure that was the crowning jewel in our neighborhood, and the crowning jewel of everything we have been working for the past 2 years.
Hundreds of people turned out for a big party on the day the Pace House was opened.
How y'all doing? All right.
When they widened First Street, it was threatened. So it was owned by that time by Jack McDaniel, whose father was invisible.
Y'all come on in. You can get in on part of the spiel here.
This was my bedroom, and it was all pink, and that bathroom was pink.
The state of Texas gave our neighborhood a state historical marker to show how important 11th Street is to local and state history.
And when you have a community that respects all of that and can come back into a neighborhood where people who live in this neighborhood say, I want to make sure we keep this. I want to make sure that the values that made this a home that I grew up in, the church I went to, the Boy Scout troop I belonged to, and all those things. And that's part of what Garland, Texas is about. Garland, Texas is willing to keep what made it great and will keep it great.
It is so refreshing to be out here where we are honoring keeping our historical homes. There are so many places these days that just scrape the historical homes and they build new stuff. And I think that's just such a shame. So I'm very pleased that in the city of Garland, we're happy to get a marker for our homes and tell the history so that our kids can know where they came from and how great the state of Texas is and the city of Garland is.
On behalf of the Texas House of Representatives, Representative Buchanan and I are so honored that we now commemorate the dedication of the official Texas historic marker. And I heard that, Louis, you said this is the first time for the historic marker dedicated to a residential house. That is awesome. And for this Travis College Hill addition, and congratulations.
This is not about Lewis and Kay Moore. This is about a great neighborhood. We have absolutely wonderful neighbors who have worked with us. We also have a wonderful city government that has come forth and stood up and with us and helped us and been the wind under our wings.
From the Office of the Mayor, proclamation, whereas the Texas Historical Commission has designated the Travis College Hill Addition to receive a state historical marker for 2015, and the 2-block area along South 11th Street between Avenues B and D is being cited for its numerous contributions to the history of the city of Garland, Dallas County, and the state of Texas. Now therefore I, Douglas Athis, joined by the City Council of Garland, Texas, do hereby proclaim April 11, 2015 as Pace House Rededication Day.
And so now get your cameras ready, because with the help of Hunter Welch and Kennedy Brown, who are going to represent the future of Travis College Hill, we are going to unveil the marker.
It was a great moment when the ribbon was pulled to unveil the historical marker that says 11th Street is a place of great significance. To think that all of this occurred on the very spot where so many bad things were happening just 2 short years ago was truly mind-boggling. The Pace House has now returned to a great place for people to live, just as it was decades ago. The people of our street have taken back their neighborhood. Now it is a place where our grandchildren can laugh and play, because something that was missing has once again returned. The magic is back on 11th Street.